Now, every minute, 6 Nigerians fall below the poverty line, and that is according to the statistics from the World Bank. The country has maintained its infamous position as the poverty capital of the world, with 93.9% of people in Africa's most populous nation currently living below the poverty line. The situation is almost the same in Africa, as it is estimated that 1 of 3 Africans live below the global poverty line and make up 70% of the global poor. Technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship are the machineries used to drive growth in developed nations, and the young population are those in the forefront. Africa's youth population have been charged to get involved in governance and policy making in order to create a better future for themselves and the next generation. Well, joining me via Zoom from Port Harcourt is social policy analyst and president Youth Up Global, joining us here to talk about this morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you. Good morning for having me.
Now, sometime in 2019, the president talked about lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty, and the president set in motion several policies to drive that. Let's begin from that point of view. How far you think we have come, and if you think that we are moving in the right direction?
Okay, the thing is, we would, of course, appreciate the government for the efforts and the things that they put together in trying to solve the issues of poverty here. But one thing I've discovered, which is very critical that we must point out, is that the areas that we are addressing it from isn't actually where we should be addressing it from. The poverty issues in Nigeria is fundamental, and we must have to solve it fundamentally. The structures need to be put in place, and we would not come out of it just by cash transfers, which is what we are seeing the government do at the moment, where you begin to put in place money moving from one hand to another. That would be a short-term solution. But what we're looking at, something that is sustainable. And so for me, at one point around July, so there was a report that about 12 million people had been moved out of poverty. And then you also saw the World Bank report that came that said 7 million or so had been moved into the same threshold where federal government said they have moved 12 million. So you begin to see these counter reports. Of course, you would understand that what the federal government says and what they want to portray is that the threshold, the budget, the poverty line threshold of $1.90, that is $1.90, as benchmarked by the United Nations, that they had been able to move people to have, wealth, or they have income, beyond that. They have a disposable income beyond that. But the thing here is that the World Bank report also suggests what we call multi-dimensional approach, because what the federal government did is head count approach, and that is not the right way to it. I think what we need to do is that we must have to bring in the multinational dimension, which is creating structures that would support industrialization and ensure that people actually, something that will impact the waste sector. So for me, I would say that the federal government is actually not attacking this war the right way, and the right approach has not been unleashed.
Now, you talked about the fact that poverty in Nigeria is a fundamental issue. I'd like for you to expatiate on that.
Yes, it's a fundamental issue because, I must have to also recount, of course, the social adjustment program of 1986 to 1993, where we were forced to take loans from the IMF and World Bank. You understand what happened here is that most times the borrowing countries and participating countries do not understand what it takes at the moment when they are going in for them to assess this. But that is where the problem of Nigeria actually started. And that's what I mean fundamental. We need to go back to the basis. when we were asked to say, okay, we need to do something to support our reserves and all that, and then ensure that we increase production. But the thing is, which production are you supporting? Because in SAP, in social adjustment lending, there is always this first clause that you must ensure exportation of primary agricultural products, and those are the things we call cash crops. Is either you are exporting cash crops, you're exporting minerals or metals, not manufactured goods. So what it means that social adjustment lending only supports primary sector, sales of raw materials and not industrialization. So that is where I say it is fundamental. So if we must in any way, of course, the aid that we have been receiving going forward, even after that period, is all about cash transfers, things that would keep Africa or Nigeria as it is, keep exporting their raw materials and all that. But the major thing that we need to do is to ensure that we work on our industrialization. That is making sure that manufactured products are out there, processed. We can't go on to export our raw materials and hope to gain actual value. The way we can capture value is only when we add value to the product and then process them and then move them into foreign markets. So fundamental, is that we must go back to the basis of what drives an economy. What drives an economy is that you must earn foreign exchange. And then foreign exchange, how do you earn foreign exchange? It's a simple mathematics and it's a simple economics. You must have to export. You must have to have something that people come to your country for. Look at China and what they are doing. So you must have to build your domestic economy in such a capacity that people have a reason to even want to visit your country for a reason, and not just because they are coming here to dump their own products. And so that is where the problem is. So it's fundamental. We must have to attack it fundamentally.
Now, as much as we are looking at industrialization, there are others who say technology is another way to go to drive the economy.
Yes, I agree. Technology is something that we must all have a flare to move into, with all full force, and innovations, of course, that come with it. I must also give credit to the private sector, especially the young people, the youth that I represent. We've been doing a whole lot in trying to attract foreign direct investment through investment, from fundings that we have seen in startups, that have done very well. There are some that have even migrated to become unicorns and all that, doing amazing things. But this is where we are having a lacuna. The thing is that the problem of Nigeria is unemployment, basically. So the level of poverty we see is because of high unemployment rates in Africa or in Nigeria, as we're looking at it now. So if you now look at the fact that technology is helping the angle of tech businesses and tech startups, but then the question is, how are we channeling our energy of technology to support production of goods? Because let me tell you, one of the basic things that affect us so much in Nigeria is prices of food. Average Nigerian spend about 56% of his earning in just food. This is something that in US you are looking at 6.4, right? And in UK you're looking at about 8.1 or 9. And then for Canada, they're looking at 9.1 or so. So you are looking at a single digit, and then here you have a very whooping double digits, where you will spend almost everything that you've earned, more than half of what you've earned in just food. So that means any increase in food prices will lead to a whole lot of issues and catastrophe, and that is why we have the high rate of poverty, because of course there is this issue of increase. Look at our inflation rate, whopping around 16 and 17%, and the food prices. This is even the general inflationary rate. You are not looking at the CPI and other indices around it. So there is a whole lot of issues here. So I think technology should be driven down towards ensuring that we begin to encourage local production of goods. We must have to support micro, small, medium enterprises to be able to access structured funding. So what we have seen government do, over the period where they've started these structures, where they are trying to, these programs where they're trying to see how they can accelerate the economy, is that they are giving these monies to the wrong hands. There should be a structured funding scheme where only micro, small, medium enterprises are allowed to access this, and then you need to create programs or create machineries that be able to monitor how these things are done. So that means you must have to follow through, not just say on paper, okay, I've done so number and then we'll disburse so number. So technology must be driven into the supporting manufacturing of goods. We need to feed ourselves and then be able to. You can imagine the level of importations that we are doing, even for product that we know that we have that we can actually produce at mass here. And the funny thing is that in economics we also teach what we call comparative cost advantage, and that is one funny thing that the Westerner will always create to ensure that you keep producing what you are good at. What you're good at is raw materials that is just there for you to bring and sell. But we need to change that narrative and begin to understand that we can go all out to even do things that ordinarily are not, it is difficult doesn't mean that it is not possible. We need to begin to create, of course, we cannot forget the power issues that we have and all that, but put all that together. Technology is awesome. We are doing a whole lot there, but I want to see that technology is moved directly towards supporting locally manufactured products, and that is the crusade I'm so much keen to be part of.
All right, we'll have to leave the conversation here now. Social policy analyst and president, UTOP Global, Dr. Faith Nwaobia, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.